February 6, 2020. Please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll, please.
Commissioner Slawinski,
Here.
Commissioner Smansky,
Here.
Commissioner Weiner,
Here.
Commissioner McBride, Commissioner Yoder,
Here.
Chair Whitliff.
Here. Thank you. Approval of agenda. At this time, the Planning Commission can take action to approve the February 6, 2020 agenda.
I'll make a motion.
I'd like to, excuse the interruption. I'd like to amend the agenda so that under bullet number 11, staff reports is moved up to old business, so it leaves room for public comments about the two reviews that will be happening tonight. I'd like to amend Roman numeral 11 to now be up to Roman numeral 8 instead.
Okay. Thank you, Kyle.
Ready?
Okay. Motion by Mick, second
Second.
by Bob. Discussion? None? Please take roll.
Commissioner Slawinski,
Yes.
Commissioner Smansky,
Yes.
Commissioner Weiner,
Yes.
Commissioner Yoder, Chair Whitliff.
Yes. Thank you. Approval of minutes. Planning Commission can take action to approve the January 9th, 2020 meeting minutes. Is there a motion? Motion by Roger.
Second.
Second by Mick. Discussion? None? Please take roll.
Commissioner Slawinski,
Yes.
Commissioner Smansky,
Yes.
Commissioner Weiner,
Yes.
Commissioner Yoder,
Yes.
Chair Whitliff.
Yes. Thank you. Public hearings. We have none tonight. Public comment on agenda-related items. I just want to read this before any public comment. All comments and handouts from the speaker at the podium will go through the chair. Also, if there is any interaction between the podium and audience, there may not be any interaction between the podium and audience. These rules cannot be followed. The chair can terminate this portion of the meeting. So is there any public comment? None? Okay. New business, special presentation, economic development presentation by Mark Miller, Economic Development Director of the Chamber of Commerce.
Good evening. Thank you, Chairman. Good afternoon, or good evening, members. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you today. So I would like to give you a brief rundown of what my position entails and the work that we're doing at the Chamber to promote economic development for the area. So this is a new position for the Chamber. We have tremendous support both for the position financially and from the community. So we have many businesses, the city, of course, the county. We just added financial support in terms of a services agreement with the Downtown Development Authority. And so we are doing quite well with that, and have a really great group of folks who are involved with our oversight committee, the Economic Development Council. That's a subset of the Chamber Board, and is chaired by Jeff Dauntz, the chairman of the County Commission. And so we have a number of businessmen and women on that council. Thad Taylor represents the city. We have a representative from the Little River Band of Ottawa Indians, and we have a very diverse group there who are providing oversight and help. So last fall, I started in September. After a review of the many plans, the economic development plans, the placemaking plans, housing plans that have been put together both from Project Rising Tide and before, there's a good deal of great ideas out there that the community members, its leaders have already put together. And so in reviewing that, after my review, we put forth 6 basic priority areas that drew from those plans. Now, first of all, we have to have economic development, traction, and growth. That's our primary purpose with this position. But we also want to include talent and workforce development, outdoor recreation and tourism, very important for our economy here in the area. Housing is a need that we're hearing from all sectors, but it is a challenge for employers to bring in new employees to the area because of the lack of housing opportunities. We also want to focus on growing entrepreneurs and bringing them up with necessary skill sets and training so that they can grow the local economy as well from that sector. And then finally, after a number of conversations with community leaders, business leaders, the sixth priority is building a collaborative environment and effective communication. So let's knock down the silos. Let's work together for a shared common vision and move forward. So there's some opportunities to do that. If I were to sum up my position in one sentence, it should be that I am the primary point of contact for any new development, new business, or existing business in the county. So the county, the city, the DDA, the businesses are all funding my position to help streamline anyone coming into the area so that we can cut through all the red tape that might happen with somebody saying, well, you got to go over here and go over here. First stop shop is the Chamber of Commerce, and then we can work together with all of our partners to help make something happen. And so that's it's very important. If I leave you with one thing, if you hear of anyone who is interested in starting a business, relocating a business, expanding a business, please send them to us at the Chambers, me specifically, and then we'll be able to help them through the process and be able to get them to completion. Now, recently put out some information about the 5 major projects I see myself working on in the near term. So just want to cover those with you. We've been doing business retention visits. I've put in about 16 of these since my start right after Labor Day. But the retention visits are very important. You sit down with a business owner or a company representative and talk about the expansion plans, their needs, talk about workforce training and other needs, and then work with them on how they can meet their expansion goals. And in terms of folks who might need a little help or need some assistance, we can bring in experts to help them with whatever their business needs are. And so I really see this as a very important part of my role. The fact that we've had 16 is very important. We've also worked with our state partners to bring them into the process so that a company might be able to have access and a sit down with the MEDC, the Michigan Economic Development Corporation, and also Michigan Works for any workforce training. So they have been coming along, and we have those set up the first Wednesday of every month to sit down. So if anybody knows of a need for a retention visit, we'd love to have those scheduled while we have those assets in the first Wednesday of the month. The second project is working on a couple of gateway projects. And I think you've heard a little bit about the transformational project that is going on downtown with the Little River Band. We're hoping to have some good news to report shortly, but we're working with the DDA on that project, the City Council, and others to move that project along. It could be something that would, as I've said recently, help people hit the turn signals when they get to that intersection of US 31 and River Street. So we're working on that, and I can tell you that I do spend a good deal of time trying to find assistance. But the bottom line here is that the Chamber, in bringing in developer days and bringing developers to the area, identified a developer who was interested in partnering with the tribe on doing a transformational high-end project. And so we're hoping to get that to fruition. We're also working on the West Shore College, Community College project at the former Glicks building, 400 River Street. We worked with the DDA and City Council again on that project. We could see somewhere around $5 million, maybe somewhat less, invested into that property so that we can have economic development agencies co-located there for the synergy and for the working opportunities and for collaboration. We'll have the Chamber of Commerce, Michigan Works, West Shore Community College Economic Development folks. And in addition to that, you're also going to have classrooms, so that people do not necessarily have to take the county transportation or take their cars down to Scottville in order to take classes. They can do it here. That eases the burden for transportation, childcare, your work schedule, and so we're really excited about that, and really glad that the community college has taken the leadership role in that project. I'm also working on new manufacturing, and so there's a few projects. One that's really exciting, but we're looking at new manufacturing here in the city, and it'd be something that will generate jobs and a source of pride for our community. And so we have a rich manufacturing history, and there are opportunities to bring some of that back. So I'm real excited about that. Again, I don't want to steal anyone's thunder with spilling the beans here, but there's a project there that's ready to go. So we are very happy with that. Finally, working with the planning department, we are working on recreational trails. And this is the fifth and final of the projects I see myself working on in the near term. When you look around the Northwest Michigan, the communities that are really thriving, even the very small communities, are doing well because they're connected to regional trail systems. You look at the Chart Trail System in Traverse. You can look at Bel Air with our mountain biking opportunities there, in addition to the Betsy River. You can see opportunities there for recreational trails. We have some identifiable gaps that the planning department has identified that need some assistance. So using my background with the Department of Natural Resources, we've worked on a strategy for how to move forward. And I can tell you that there's opportunity to bring millions of dollars worth of investment into the county to connect trails and realize that potential for additional tourism and promoting the area as a destination for mountain biking, for hiking, snowmobiles, and other activities. So all of that is possible, and I think that focusing on that at this time will probably pay off dividends in the near future. We're also working with Jeff Dance, Commissioner Dance, on the Manistee Lake trail idea, relocating the the rail system around Manistee Lake and putting that on a bridge across to still meet the needs of our manufacturers, but open up the corridor for trails, but also think about the rail yard that's at US 31 just north of the drawbridge. That could be redeveloped into green space or into housing or some other opportunity. With some work. And so while that is getting some attention, and we're looking at the needs for environmental assessments and engineering assessments, there's a potential to push that as well, and that could be transformational for the community as well. So going back to some of the priorities on communication and a collaborative environment, I just want to touch on one more thing that is in my workload, and that is when Project Rising Tide began to wind down, there was a need for a Project Rising Tide 2.0, a second version, which would implement the planning that was done in the planning phase there. I volunteered to facilitate and lead a group called Manistee Forward. So it's the same folks who were involved with Project Rising Tide, plus a few extras, but Project Rising Tide now is Manistee Forward, and we've been meeting on a monthly basis with the city, the DDA, the manufacturers, Community Foundation, the Ramsdell, et cetera. Chambers involved, obviously, and we are working on implementing those plans on economic development. I think we're building a good conversation. The planning department's also involved, we need to point that out. But we are implementing those and having good conversations. So it's generating a lot of ideas, but as I've kind of alluded to before, we have a lot of great plans. The way I see us here, and my role or position is to start with the implementation. So what do we need to do to start putting these things in practice on the ground and make a difference in our communities? So that is where we're at with that, and I think that you're also seeing some additional communication from chamber staff, from myself. Very happy and pleased to be able to have a monthly column to talk about the issues and make sure that the community is aware. So we're happy to be in front of you, and what I'd like to do now is ask if you have any questions, and we can continue a dialogue here. So thanks again for the opportunity.
Thank you, Mark.
Go ahead.
No, well, okay, one question here. How come we have not seen you with all our marijuana facilities? Were you not involved in any of those trying to come into town?
No, I have not been.
Okay.
I have not been involved with those, and I think that, you know, it's a good opportunity to see if there can be growth, and certainly will be an opportunity to rehabilitate some of the properties along US 31.
Right.
But I have not been engaging those businesses.
Okay.
So
That's fine.
far.
One other question, how about the drop forge? Now, they're talking, or, well, not the drop forge,
Excel.
Excel building. The big red building on River Street across from your little.
Ironworks.
Yeah, Ironworks, the old Ironworks.
Ironworks, yes.
Now, have you been involved with them? They seem to have some great ideas.
Yeah, so my understanding is that the building is under contract. We have not had any interaction with them. I know that they're moving towards something related to the marijuana grow
Well,
facility.
they're talking housing and everything. I mean, the last time we talked to them.
Okay.
don't know.
My understanding is that the building has a restrictive covenant on it that would prohibit housing inside the building. So I think you know, I'd be happy to work with someone there, but I also realize that because of the previous and prior uses, that there may be some issues with what can be done inside. And there's a lot of great opportunities for that building, but right now my understanding is they're moving towards a grow operation license, and so we'll let that play out without
Well, sure.
introducing any other.
Yeah, you don't want to get involved, you don't have to. And then you have all the questions and answers for somebody coming into town.
I'm hoping I'm getting there, but the good thing is that I know and been around long enough that if I don't know an answer, I go get help. So,
Okay.
so we
Well,
have a lot of good
reasonable.
partners that can help me with that, and I'm learning a good deal about the area already, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, good, I agree. You're doing it, I mean, I hope you do a good job. You've been here since September, you say?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, yeah. We have a problem getting people to come to our meeting. You say you're getting a good response from people?
I am. Actually, we're having it's been a good response from the community. The community leaders, you know, from Mayor Zelinski to Councilman Szymanski and others have been absolutely fantastic to work with. We're seeing a lot of response from the business community, welcoming and looking forward to working with us. So it's been a very positive experience so far.
Well, good luck.
Thank you.
When you're talking about the recreational trails, is there thoughts of connecting to the North Country Trail in that area on that?
So the plan from the planning department was to connect a rail trail corridor from Copemish down to Manistee. So some of that's already in public ownership. The DNR is looking at, has identified those as segments. But you also have private landowners along those trails that need to be identified. And
Because you get over in Wellston, you've got the North Country Trail through that area.
Yep. Yeah, and
And
it's a
that's been
fantastic.
established for a long time there.
That's right. So we want to build on that trail, the Manistee River Trail, and identify some of those gaps that are needed. So I think connecting to the Betsy River Trail system to the north,
It's a beautiful trail.
going down through, you know, the planning department's done a fantastic job outlining this, but it's such a large undertaking. How do we bite that off, and what do we take on? And so there's philanthropic support, there's state support from National Resources Trust Fund grants. There could potentially be other partners involved, and so how do we tackle that? And I think we've come up with some good ideas on how to bring folks together and start to realize that. But there are so many different things that could be done in the county for trails, but identifying the one that has some ease, the lower costs, and because it's already in a rail corridor, and then going to the state and expressing our interest, while they've already identified that corridor as something they'd like to work on in the future. I think we're starting to move forward in a positive manner.
Mr. Miller, is there anything from the Planning Commission that we can do to facilitate any of your 6 goals that you've presented to us tonight?
So I would say that, having an open line of communication about potential projects that are coming in, and using your authorities and the flexibility that you may or may not have, you may tell us no, but being able to work with us and have an open line of communication about particular projects. So, after you've done some review of the planning and the zoning requirements in the area, I think there's a good deal that is allowable in the existing buildings that we have and the areas that we have. So I think there's a lot of opportunity here in Manistee. We should be fine for now. I don't have anything that is a particular need, but knowing that we can reach out and talk to you is a good step.
Mike, one more, Marco. You mentioned, no, after Mike follow up, about the buildings down on River Street with this Little River project. Now you say that's a gateway project. Now, are we as planners aware of anything to that nature? Yet?
Not yet.
Okay, so is there any planning and zoning involved in this? When do we see it?
Yes, there is
I mean,
definitely,
even just to say, hey, maybe not.
definitely planning and zoning involved with it. When an application comes to fruition, then it would be more apparent and prevalent to bring it before your
Oh, sure.
attention.
So you're still just working on a plan?
I haven't had anything come across my desk.
Haven't received anything, but they are aware, but we're at a stage with that project that they are still conceptually working through what will be there. And so when they have some solidified plans, they will come to Planning Commission.
Yeah, I've seen several pictures conceptually.
Yeah.
But, okay, so nobody's really sure what's gonna happen yet.
They're getting closer.
They're getting close.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
All
Is that
right.
on the north and south side of River Street?
South side, yeah.
Both.
Oh, both sides, okay, I'm not aware of the north side, both sides, holy smokes. Okay.
Well, I know we do have to work on some ordinances.
Well, let me say this, sir, don't come to us and say, we gotta have it in by next month. As long as we know we're working on it, okay?
Yes, sir.
Because we've been there. Well, I gotta have it done this week, because I gotta send it next week.
Well,
No, good luck, sir.
I heard you loud and clear on that. We'll make sure we give you lots of lead time. I will give you a little bit of encouragement on that particular sentiment, in that the planning department officials and the chamber and the DDA sit down once a month to talk about issues and what's coming up. And so we have regular communication so that no one's surprised. And so the one thing that we've heard from the planning department personnel is, don't surprise us. And we've heard that loud and clear now several times.
Yeah, we'd like to be in the loop on that, Mark, so, as a group, so.
Yeah.
Roger,
I mean,
not surprised?
Yeah, we're on the outside, we read it in the, like you say, the trails. I just read in the paper where some big logging company donated how many thousand acres up around Coltmish or someplace? It was in today's paper, I'm sorry, I don't really, but for a trail system.
Oh, for snowmobile,
There was a snowmobile, maybe, okay, I don't know.
1.5 miles of property.
Yeah, okay, there you go, see? I mean, we found it in the paper, you know? We wanna find something out, we read Ludington paper. I mean, I'm sorry, Manistee, if you're here.
It was in Manistee's paper.
So this underscores the need for better communication
Yeah.
and collaboration, so.
That's what I mean, like,
point.
communication.
Any other questions? Raj?
No?
Pam? Nope.
Good luck.
Mr. Miller, thank you.
Welcome.
All right, moving along, old business, which will be a staff report on short-term rental ordinance review
Yeah.
and recommendations, and then moving on to sign ordinance review.
All right, so the discussion of housing issues in the city is a serious concern, is defined by different housing studies by different entities, including Housing North and Beckett and Rader, to name a few. It's definitive that the lack of available houses on the market are burdensome to individuals looking for long-term housing solutions in Manistee City. The planning department has taken the cue to concoct a document to help direct some initiative towards the situation. To that end, a sample short-term rental ordinance has been drafted to address this issue and start the conversation towards housing regulation. This will be helpful in bringing long-term housing solutions to the community. What we'll be reviewing tonight is a draft short-term rental ordinance, which is just ideas on paper that we can kind of start going through and see if they're feasible in this area and kind of either X out some things or talk about adding some things. It's just a starting place to start a narrative and a discussion moving towards this. So what's been in your packet is taken from a township nearby here that just drafted this. So this is, like I said, a draft. So the first section goes over the purpose, kind of outlining different needs and reasons for a short-term rental ordinance, including providing the community with revenue and such, as well as can also cause difficulty with character. Some findings and rulings include consistent with different single-family characteristics of neighborhoods, as well as to make regulations for short-term rental activity so people have more of an idea of what to expect. Section 2 is more of a definitions, going over what exactly the wordage means in some of the different areas. Section 3 goes over the requirements for the owners of the short-term rentals. Section 4 is the occupants and regulations pertaining to people who would be staying in these short-term rentals. Section 5 is signage for the rental dwelling units to identify that it is a short-term rental. Section 6 is the violations and revocation of certificate. Section 7 goes over different enforcement opportunities, and then the procedure in Section 8. Section 9 is the circuit court civil action procedures, and then Section 10 goes over the validity of the document. So if we can just start with Section 1 and go through it and to see if anything needs to be relieved from it or added to it. So would you like me to read it word for word? So, or what do you think?
No.
Okay.
Now, why don't you let us read it and bring it back next month for a decision?
We already had it in our packets.
Yeah. I mean, if this is what we have.
Yep, yep.
Okay, so is there any comments on Section 1? I guess I'll say this. After we go through this review, and the comments I take from tonight, I'll make it into another document and put it under new business as a final draft, and then we can go over it one more time and then move it forward if feasible to. So the Planning Commission can't pass this. It's more of a recommendation document to City Council. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So tonight is just a review. Anything that needs to be added or subtracted is why we're here, and then I'll make a final draft. We'll go over it one more time next month, and then, if feasible, we'll pass along to the
Kyle, if we happen to come up with anything like tonight or tomorrow or the next day, can we just let you know on that too?
yeah.
To be added in, so, maybe Saturday, something come to our mind someplace, just let you know next week on it.
Yeah, absolutely. There's another special meeting on the 20th. So maybe under a certain agenda item, I'll add just an update from tonight. I can put it on that even agenda as another draft review, and then for them, does that work?
Yeah.
Work for everybody?
Because you never know when something's gonna come to mind.
Right.
No, that's true.
Right.
I don't know about calling them on Saturday, but.
Okay, so Section 1, the purpose, going over the different reasons for this. Does anyone have anything they would like added or subtracted?
Yep.
No.
Okay, the definitions go over things like bedroom, capacity, rental certificate, dwelling units, local contact person, occupant, short-term rental, special events. Can anyone think of any other definitions that could be added?
I have an issue with the square footage
Yep.
for the second person,
Under what section?
under Section 2.
Section 2.
Definition.
I was gonna, same thing.
This is a bedroom must be habitable space of not less than 70 square feet of floor area for a single habitation and 50 additional square feet for each additional.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of houses in Manistee that don't have that. The bedrooms are much smaller than that,
Okay.
so.
You think we should look at minimizing the amount of square feet to something less?
For the second.
For the second.
For the second person, because you're going from a 7 by 10 bedroom to basically 10 by 12, and there's a lot of houses who don't have 10 by 12 bedrooms. I mean,
Okay.
they're like 8 by 8, 9 by 9, and you can put 2 people in there easily.
But what we may want to look at is limiting the amount of people that can
In the
inhabit,
household.
in the house
In the
by the
household.
number of bedrooms. In other words, if it's a 3-bedroom house, you limit it to 7 people, something like that.
Or
Which is-
I know some places go per people by the total
Total square footage.
rather than just,
Bedroom.
But I would associate a number rather than the square footage. For example, we have timeshares, and they're very specific about how many people based on the square footage and/or the number of bedrooms that you're allowed within a facility.
yes.
Okay, so to synthesize that discussion, can you recommend somewhere in the actual document I should add this language and what the language should actually say? Should it be under the definition of bedroom? Should it be under somewhere different, like regulations pertaining to occupants?
I would say in the regulations for occupancy.
Okay, so,
Sounds like a good place to put it,
Yep.
yeah.
okay, so when we get to that, we can be more precise with that. Regarding what you said about 50 additional square feet for each additional person, you want that, or you were,
I would take that out
Yeah.
at this point.
oh,
I
omit
would
that.
leave it in the other section rather than, because you identify that, by number of bedrooms and/or square
Okay.
footage, how many people your capacity can be.
So eliminate the whole sentence of a bedroom must be habitable space not less than 70 square feet of floor area for a single.
I'd leave that part in, or 70 square feet, what was it, 8?
That's a 7 by 10 room.
7
Yeah,
by 10.
7.
Closet.
Yeah.
It's just over.
So I would say that that's fine,
So
It's
take
just over
out
an 8 by 8 room.
but the additional 50 square
nix, the
foot.
additional.
It's the additional that really
Okay,
isn't feasible.
Right.
okay, so after and 50 to the comma before person, nix 50 additional square feet for each additional person is what you're saying.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, that's been noted, and will be changed for the next draft. So besides that, in the bedrooms definition section, we can continue on with more of the definitions on page 2, going over capacity. Things that are highlighted in the document are things that need to be addressed in the next level with city council. For example, a rental certificate hasn't really been discussed. It's just a placeholder because that would be necessary for something like this. So regarding any of the other definitions in this section, can anyone add or omit anything from that? So it's capacity, rental certificate, dwelling unit, local person contact, occupant, short-term rental, special events.
That's for short term, yeah.
Okay, so if we move forward regarding the short-term rental owner requirements for section 3, it states initially right off the bat that a certificate is required prior to the rental of any dwelling for a period of less than 30 days. So that would need to come to fruition for these to be in place. The certificate would be issued by the city, valid for 3 years. The certificate will be issued 15 days of receipt and complete an approved application. The certificate shall indicate the maximum number of occupants that can be accommodated as per section 4. A certificate and certificate holder shall be subject to all the standards and penalties. Does anyone have any additions or anything to omit regarding the certificate language?
Nope.
3 years?
Pardon?
Do you want 3 years or do you want less?
I think 3 years is, because we got a cancellation policy.
Oh, okay.
So something like this will bring into more of an organizational structure within the zoning and admin of this so that we can keep everything organized through spreadsheets and things and BSNA and updates and such. So the 3-year timeline is just a suggestion that could be shortened or lengthened.
Now, is the 3 years, is that workable as far as the workload? Because we're talking about, hundreds of applications that will need to be reviewed, and
That's a good question. So you're,
I figured 3 was probably the minimum, because.
It'd be nice to stagger them.
Yes, if we could
Right.
say the first,
Yeah.
first so many get a 3 year, the next so many get a 2 year or something like that. And then, once they get through that cycle, then put them on a 3-year cycle so they rotate, something like that.
Because you're gonna get a huge influx of
The
of
first time
applicants.
through, it's gonna be like the marijuana issue.
Waiting in
you're
line.
Flooded and that.
Do you think we have that many rentals?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, there's hundreds in Manistee,
Really?
Yeah.
Holy smokers.
hundreds.
There's probably thousands. So regarding,
Closer to thousands,
You
What's
just
that?
gotta figure a way to,
1,000 at least.
Yeah. So what I'm just saying is somehow in there has to be some kind of a process so that you can work the process. And I'm not quite sure how you want to do that, but
gotta be something for the initial thing for when that first batch comes in. X number is 3 years, the next X number is 2 years.
Oh, yeah.
Next six,
Yeah.
1 year, then that 1 year batch goes for a 3 year.
Yeah, yeah.
So every third year, you're getting a third of that group.
what you're,
Along those lines.
I understand what you're saying. I do. It would be very difficult to keep that all organized in the initial vision. I'm trying to figure out how to word.
What kind of wording we gotta come up with on it or
Yeah.
something.
or some kind of a, basically it may be the initial, it may be just coming up with a strategy to stagger the initial process.
Okay.
That, you're going to accept, 100 per month for the first year, first come, first served basis, something to be able to manage.
Something manageable, yeah.
Okay, I'll make a note. I'll make a note of that and take it back to the office and consider it. Maybe others can consider that language too, and we can talk about it next meeting.
You gotta have something that's not gonna relieve you guys of some of that stress in there, cause you
Staggering.
don't everybody have come do the exact same every 3 years.
Let me know the date and I'll have the Lions Club sell hot dogs.
Oh yeah. So okay, that's great, Mick. So staggering permit validity initially to start the program is what the recommendation is.
Yeah.
Staggering it.
Okay.
That's gonna save you guys a lot of work, I think, in the long run.
Just to help
Than
you.
that first start, because
That's been noted, and I'll take another look at that. Thank you.
yeah, it might be where some number that you guys come up with that you wanna have for this batch, then this batch, and this batch.
Can work with.
What's ever gonna work for you.
Sure. It could also be noted that different districts could have different stipulations too with permits, or there could be, do you consider there should be a cap on the number that come in per year? If we consider the town of 6,500 and, there's an influx of over 1,000 rentals, do you want to consider a number that would max the available certificates? And if you want, we could split the town up or the city up between the river north and south at least, and then maybe even west and east of the South District or the R1, for example, or R2. Does that make sense?
Yeah, you can even, like you said,
Quarter.
with the R1s is first 3 year parcels in an R2, they get a 2 year for your
Okay.
staggering.
All right.
That might be easier that way, because you've already got a defined area. that
Okay,
those are
so
in.
I'll make a note of staggering permit validity initially regarding different zoning areas within the city.
That might be the easier way to,
It would be easier. Okay.
Also, I didn't read anything about covenants, community covenants having whether or not they are going to have authority over this, or
Oh,
somehow we have to address that, if there is a covenant within a housing area that prohibits,
True.
does this circumvent that, or does the covenant, I don't know.
I would think the
More of a
covenant would
retail
super-
rental thing,
I
I'm
would
not
think the
sure.
covenant would circumvent.
But there's
this.
nothing, I know that's,
Well, like in Harbor Springs,
yeah.
Harbor Village, they
Huh.
do allow rentals there. I don't see where it would be a problem. I don't see where it would be a conflict to have the permit as well, because it's really two different issues.
Okay.
It's the HOA and then the city requires, so.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
if the HOA though, if the HOA says that they do not permit it, then it wouldn't be permitted
Right.
through this either.
Right. Yeah.
so the covenant would
Supersede,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I'll look into addressing covenants regarding their hierarchy with this. Okay, and I'll find a place within the
pretty
document.
much whatever the more strict thing is, would prevail.
Okay.
Well, I wouldn't say that.
Now,
Well, I just think we have to address it.
say that.
I don't know all the
Their
legal-
HOA has more strict requirements than the city would want. So they're their covenants should prevail in that area.
Oh, yeah,
I mean, if they're, if they're,
Right.
if like Lighthouse Landings, I don't think they do. I don't think
Oh,
they.
it's just like city and county laws,
Yeah,
you know,
Okay.
or it's the state and federal laws, who supersedes.
right.
Yep, definitely. I wrote a note of that, as well as staggering permits, and I'll look into that further for next draft. So as we go to section 3B, the application process, this is the information necessary for a rental certificate, including address of property, property owner name, signature of property owner, and local contact person, number of bedrooms and dwelling unit, and the rated capacity as outlined in section 4, number of parking spaces, sketch of the property indicating location of the dwelling, driveway, and other points of access, contact information including name, address, 24-hour contact phone number, shall be posted in a prominent place. Information must be kept up to date in the city's records. It's a certificate holder's responsibility to inform the city of any changes in caretaker or contact information. The number of bedrooms shall be as certified by the applicant based on the definitions found in the second section. Local contact person, each owner of the short-term rental must designate a local contact person. The local contact person must be available 24 hours a day and be within 45 minutes travel time of the property. An owner meeting these requirements may designate it themselves as the local contact person. I just want to stop there for a quick second. Do we think anything about the local contact person information as presented, any of the timelines or anything to be edited or anything like that? Do you think 45 minutes away from a property to be a local contact person is close enough, too far away?
I think it's too far. Just having done it before, 45 minutes, that puts you up in Benzonia, and that's a little.
You know, I'm looking at, I drive to Ludington every day, it's 30 minutes right there. So that's still quite a stretch going
It is.
that far.
It is, I mean, if you've
And that's
got
in
it-
good
if-
weather.
Yeah, and that's in good weather, and if you've got an emergent problem, that 45 minutes is an hour and a half, 3 hours or something. And
So,
By the time you get a hold of that person and they get,
yeah, getting a hold of them is the other problem with that far of a,
okay, so do you think that should be less minutes travel time to the property?
I do, I do.
Would you go by mileage or minutes then? 15
Well,
minutes?
well, mileage.
I think that's almost reasonable, though. I mean, I was thinking even in the military, our contact time to respond back was within 45 minutes.
To respond back, what if
To
you
res-
get a hold of that local person who lives up in Benzonia and you've got.
Right, well, that's the problem, but then it's a moot point. If you don't get a hold of them, it's,
You know, if you look at it, we have city employees that live an hour and a half away.
right.
I think 45 minutes is fair enough.
Reasonable.
All right, the certificate number, the different short-term rentals will have a specific number issued by the city so that we know they're approved and certified, rated for the capacity of the rental. It's the certificate holder's responsibility to inform the city of any changes in caretaker or contact information. A certificate number shall be posted on the mailbox for the rental or in a location clearly visible. Unless connected to the public sewer system, the owner of the dwelling shall ensure that a properly sized and functioning septic is maintained. I don't think the city really has that, do they? Or there is some septic, isn't there?
There is.
Out west of town, is that it?
Golden Acres still has
Okay.
septic.
Has a few, yeah.
There's
So we'll leave
one at
that.
my house, so,
Okay, we'll leave that in there. Failure or operational deficiency of the sewage waste disposal system shall be grounds for immediate revocation of the certificate. And that kind of goes over all that. Do we think anything needs to be added for those, or?
Well, the only comment do we want to limit the number of permits that an individual can have?
Oh, interesting, huh?
And I don't know if that's something that's been done in other communities, so that you don't have somebody that has 10 of these properties, where it's really designed more for an individual owner to kind of fill in the space versus somebody who's buying up 10 properties and.
It's a management company,
has
yeah.
a motel, hotel business.
Huh.
So I don't know, but that was what came to mind, is I didn't see anything that said that I could buy or have 10 licenses for these short-term rentals in 10 different locations.
One thing I'm seeing in the application thing that I've been trying to find, you've got the number of bedrooms in the dwelling unit. I'd like to see the total square footage in the building,
Yes.
because that could make a difference.
Yeah.
It's not mentioned in here, anywhere in here.
Well,
Well, that's what we said, instead of the bedroom, we would address total occupancy based on square
Whether in
footage
bedroom.
requirements or, and number of bedrooms.
Okay, so I'll write a note that the total square footage should be noted on the certificate not to be below a certain number, or what do you think?
Based on occupancy, we'd have to, that was.
It's also going to almost depend on what type of building it is too.
Yeah.
that's what I say, we might want to take this home and read it over, Kyle.
I mean, you have the condos on the river that have
Yeah.
efficiency apartments,
Right.
500 square feet or 550. You put 3 or 4 people in there.
Right. Okay, so the total square
And
foot,
normally, those efficiencies, even in the, if you go to a timeshare, they're gonna say 2.
And you'll see studio apartments and stuff like
It's
that
the same
too.
thing, and they're limited to 2. They don't allow you to have the bed and, you know, the couch, the roll-out couch, typically.
okay.
But I was just curious about the, you know, are we going to allow, you know, for an individual to have multiple units
That's up to,
as
for
a
this,
business? Just something for thought. And I don't know if other communities have addressed it or not.
Not that I know of, but, I mean, it's a good point.
See what I mean? You could literally buy
Well,
10
I-
properties and have a hotel.
I know that, you know, one guy in town owned, I think, 12 rentals at one time.
Right.
You know, and
can a local contact person, be the local point of contact for more than one?
Well, not so much a local contact. Can we have, you know, do we?
They're responding
In this particular area, do we want to be able to allow people to have a lot of different places that they're using summer rentals?
I think there should be a cap personally, honestly, but I don't want to
I
discourage.
don't have any quantifiable data to support it. That would be, you know, maybe you could.
you'd have to look, I don't know of any community that limits the number, I mean, right offhand that I can think of, but I do know some people who are buying up a lot of rental houses, so.
Yeah,
You know, I can see somebody's out of town, people having.
Now,
a place.
rental is a little bit different if you're talking about long-term
I know.
rentals. But with the short-term rentals, the
But it-
design was not to be to compete with the motel business.
well, that's what we're doing.
Well, that's why we're trying to have something like this in place, is to kind of level the playing field. And
And we're talking about an alternate contact person for these people. I'm wondering if multiple property owners can all use the same emergency local contact person to have respond.
Huh.
If that could be something that could be,
There are businesses that do that.
do it.
Yeah.
You have
So-
real estate companies. that
Yeah,
do it.
yeah.
so just basically 15 people own different rentals and they have the same person be their emergency responder to those
Yeah.
sites.
And the other reason I bring that up is because we do have a housing issue. And it's one way that we might be able to kind of keep the playing field a little bit more level if we're not creating all of these weekly opportunities.
Sure. Okay, so the notes I have in that section are, beyond staggering the permits for different zoning districts, the total square footage of the rentable area should be showcased on their certificate. Address covenants if they supersede this, and then research the number of units owned by one person. Is that the comments that is that all the comments I should say? Okay. So, section 4 goes over all the different regulations pertaining to the occupants, including parking, trash, things like special events, capacity limit, no overnights, shall be lodged in any portion of the dwelling unit unless there's both a door and an available window. Occupants living limited to the dwelling unit, noise, no fireworks. Pets shall be secured on the premises or on a leash, campfires, fire protection devices, and notice to occupants. Do you want me to read all these out?
No,
No,
no. But
Okay.
my only issue is with special events. I think that's pretty gregarian, or it's you're basically saying that, you know, I'm sorry, you have this rental, don't bring anybody to your house.
Don't bring your family to 4th of July.
Yeah, or, you know, again, have, you know, you meet somebody in the bar and you can't have them over for a drink. I don't, because it's, the way it's worded, I think it needs to be kind of addressed. I get it for, you know, having big event, renting a little house and then having a big reception or a big party, but the way it's written, it basically kind of tells you that you're not allowed to have really any kind of an event. It says, especially when you talk, or similar gathering or activity.
Yeah, so you couldn't even have a family birthday party that way.
Outdoor party. Well, what's the definition of an outdoor party? I want to have a barbecue with 4 or 5 friends.
So let me read it out loud, just so we're under the same impression. Section 4C states special events, in parentheses, a wedding, outdoor party, family reunion, bachelor or bachelorette parties, or similar gathering or activity, in parentheses, are not allowed on the property for more than the number of occupants permitted in the dwelling unit under the ordinance.
Right. So maybe we have a number restriction saying that these parties, you know, these kind of events can't be over 8 people, or some kind of a reasonable number perhaps.
Or a time frame.
Or the other is that, you know, that there's got to be some kind of maybe a caveat where somebody can apply for permission to have.
That might be a better route to go, because if
Yeah.
you put a total number on it, who's
Right, well, and that's.
not gonna get invited?
And, yeah, and then this one isn't very enforceable either. I
Yeah.
mean, because you're basically, you know, again, well, this wasn't an outdoor party, this was a barbecue.
Well, that's-
Or you get a family with their kids
You know what
there,
I mean? Yeah.
and they get a birthday party for the kids and all their friends are coming. All of a sudden now those friends can't come to the party?
Right, well, it says, yeah, no,
Well,
no.
have you looked at D?
Okay,
But
so,
nothing, how many of these kids actually stay that long for a birthday
So-
party, something like that?
so I'll reword section 4, letter C, to look into that a little bit further and get some other opinions about that language, and as well as come to you next time with some different wordage.
Because you know, again, we get the idea, we don't want to have, you know, people renting a house and then having blowout parties and, you know, we don't want it to be Panama City Beach, but we've got to try to figure out some way of being able to have a reasonable approach to somebody who comes to town to be with their families, to be able to use the property appropriately.
Okay.
You know, maybe some time frames in there that they can have the people on premise, but they have to be off by, or something like that.
Just,
All right.
Well, you could keep it in the quiet times by 11
Yeah.
PM.
right.
Yeah.
Have them gone by 11.
Would you like me to read capacity limit or any of the other regulations pertaining to occupants, or should we continue? I'll read it anyway, I guess. The capacity limit is the maximum number of overnight occupants shall be limited to the following. For a dwelling having 1 bedroom, the maximum number of occupants is 4 people. For any dwelling with 2 or more bedrooms, the maximum number of occupants shall be determined by multiplying the number 3 times the number of bedrooms. Note, a maximum of 4 children under the age of 13 shall not be counted in the capacity limit.
Does that kind of follow the fire codes a little bit?
What's
might
that?
You want to look into the fire codes and see what that says.
Mm-hmm.
Because that may change some numbers for you in the fire codes.
I'll consult the fire department about the capacity limit.
Yeah, because, I mean, your 70 square foot bedroom there is for 4 people.
2 sets of bunk beds.
That's, yeah. Unless you pull out or something, living area, but I don't know.
Okay. There's a noise ordinance, so that would be limited to what does not disturb the quiet, comfort, or repose. So I'll look into the specifics of that a little bit further too. On page 5, the fireworks, I need to find the exact ordinance number for that too, but no fireworks shall be used except in conformance with the codified ordinance for that. Pets shall be secured on the premises or on a leash at all times. Any comments about that?
That's good.
We were considering that pets should be up to the discretion of the owner of the building. So, I mean, they could regulate themselves.
Yeah,
Yep.
if the owner doesn't want pets in the building, you don't have pets in the building.
Yeah, that's true.
The campfires, I need to consult the fire department about that. I know there's,
Because they just rewrote what they would have wanted that for the city, and the city did not authorize it, but it may be something that we could do it for this particular group.
Okay.
Since it is a special interest group, so.
I'll consult the fire department about that, as well as letter K, fire
Yep.
protection devices.
Now, J number 2, located no less than 10 feet away from a structure. I thought it was 15 feet.
No, 10 is what's in
10 and
NFPA
25.
codes.
I thought
It might be, the city might be
the city
more, but,
is 15 feet.
but if you go with the national codes, it's only 10.
But we're in the city.
I know, so.
All right,
Anyways, let the fire department give you that guide.
Well, they'll tell you how far it is, that's right.
yep, sounds good. So I'll consult them on that as well as letter K.
Well, I know I keep mine when, so when
do
I
I.
keep mine, so it's mine.
So then the last one in the regulation states that a notice to occupants, the foregoing regulations shall be provided to the short-term rental occupants as part of the written rental agreement. In addition, a placard in at least 60-point print shall be posted in a prominent place in the dwelling describing the foregoing regulations, including but not limited to the maximum capacity of the dwelling, the name and contact info for the local contact person, as well as the location of fire extinguishers and maps showing the dwelling exits.
Add emergency numbers.
Yep. The contact information for local persons as well as other emergency services. Okay. Any comments on that? Okay, so,
I wonder if we want to have that a certain size so people don't see the microscopic ones some people may try to push through.
it says 60,
Point print,
Yeah,
it says
60
on
point,
it.
it's got it there.
Yeah.
That's,
that should,
that's
big
normal.
enough.
that should be big enough.
That's what we're reading now about.
So, any other comments about section 4, the short-term rental regulations pertaining to occupants? Okay, I have the notes taken down and I'll address those and
Hey
bring.
Kyle, on K, fire protection devices, fire extinguishers, should there be a escape map in that?
You mean the dwelling,
That placard is the escape map.
Okay.
oh, the map of showing dwelling exits?
Yeah.
Exits,
Yeah.
fire extinguishers,
Yep, that's in the,
It's supposed to be on that placard.
okay.
yep, that's number, that's in.
Look like stuff in a hotel room.
Yeah, you are here.
Okay, so section 5 is about signage. The short-term rental dwelling is permitted an on-site identification sign no larger than 2 square feet. I think that needs to be defined a little bit further. Does anyone have any suggestions about that?
Well, the first thought that came to mind is the real estate companies have rental signs, the lawn placards, and they're probably 2 feet by 3 feet. What is the normal real estate?
The frame is like 2 by 3.
Yeah, 2 by 3 frame.
But
Yeah.
the main sign is like 2 by 2.
2 by 2?
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is 4 square feet.
And it's basically a road, it's a lawn placard is what you see most often now, and not attached to the dwelling. So we have to identify whether or not we're going to continue to allow for lawn signs. And if so, we have to identify what we expect them to look like.
I mean, can we consider a generic, just a certain color sign and that signifies a short-term rental? Does it have to have words? Can you have a light green sign and
A
as
certain type of design of a sign.
like a universal sign, so that the applicant or the occupant, I mean, the owner of the building, that can't decide what's on, I'm not sure if that's even allowable in the first place, but it's something to look into.
Well, somewhere you can regulate what color the sign will be. Just so, okay, all these rental units have this color sign. They're not gonna be confused with some of the real estate signs.
Oh, really?
I'll look
Let
at
them put their own sign up there, what the heck is the difference? 2 by 2, did I tell them what size?
So what do you think, Pam?
Well, I mean, there is a rental the real estate company that does do short-term rentals. I don't know how they would feel about having, I think, I don't want to see any homemade signs or anything put up. I certainly don't want to see that. I wouldn't mind having a same sign for all of them.
Some kind of
The
standards, it doesn't have to be exactly the same, but the standard
Yeah,
has to be
the size.
reasonable, so that it's, that I don't have, handwritten.
I don't.
Yeah.
Smart chicken?
Okay.
All right,
Some kind of professional design.
yeah, professional.
The font should be the same, maybe the color changes.
So the note I have for that is same standards and uniformity throughout.
Right.
Okay.
And also placement, that they obviously just, that they can't be placed on the right-of-way ground. It has to be, that kind of stuff be added in there as well.
All right. Any other comments about that? So section 6 goes over the violations and revocation of certificates. Failure to update information will be considered a violation of the ordinance. Advertising for a capacity above what's allowed in the certificate's a violation. Failure of the certificate to designate a local contact person and their availability at any time during the tenure will be considered a violation. Providing false or misleading information. Failure to obtain a short-term rental certificate while operating a short-term rental is a violation. Failure to comply with any of the regulations under section 4 that we went over earlier would be considered a violation. As well as nuisance, any certificate holder who violates any provisions of the City of Manistee's nuisance ordinance will be considered a violation. The city will have the right to seek injunctive order if there is a violation. And a short-term rental certificate may be revoked following 2 violations in the same property in any year.
What are we defining as a timely manner
For what,
for the number 1 in there?
number 1?
For it's a timely manner. Some people may consider a week a timely manner, others may think a month.
Okay.
Yeah, we want to come up with some kind of definite time frame.
Oh, I see, okay.
Not to exceed 30 days or something.
Yeah, I'd say a month,
Is there?
30 days.
30 days, yeah.
Inspections?
Also, just a suggestion is to have the city attorney go through that whole section, because all of that is really,
But that's
is
a good point.
either legal or
No,
law enforcement.
He'll be going through the whole thing.
Well, yeah, well, you have to let him read it before we sign it.
This is just a work.
Time to bring it up, so.
All right, so 30 days will be considered a timely manner.
No more than 30 days.
Okay. Any other the violations stated that need more wording?
That's where I'd leave it up to the
Oh, to the, yeah, sure.
legal guys.
What about inspections? I know that's not in the violations, or it could be.
Would that be under the rental, fall under the rental certificate part of the city?
Well, wouldn't that fall every 3 years when you ask for a certificate?
Right, we would have to, that would be something that we would have to address, that there would be some kind of a city inspection with an appropriate fee for
Yeah.
the property.
Well, don't we, well, we have a rental inspector now, but
Yeah.
for rental,
But
They would have, I would,
there's not for short term, there's.
or not for short, right, right.
but it
I
would,
think it needs to be. addressed.
similar to what we have for rental property. It should
Yes.
be-
That could be part of them getting their rental certification issued.
Correct.
That you have that done.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so I'll look into that a little bit further and come up.
Just maybe add that up into the certificate, rental inspection,
Yeah.
inspection and certificate, something like that.
When they come to be certified.
Okay. So section 7 states the different enforcement officials for these different ordinance language. The city ordinance enforcement officer, the city zoning administrator, any police officer, or any person officially authorized by the city Manistee board are hereby designated as authorized officials empowered to issue municipal civil infraction citations to alleged violators of the ordinance. So we don't have an enforcement officer, but there could be potential for that in the future. So that's why that's in there. The city zoning administrator, myself, has the capacity to do that. Any police officer or person officially authorized with the city, a Manistee board, those would be the three different entities.
Didn't the city bring on a building inspector?
Yes.
That
Would you
wouldn't,
consider that as an enforcement officer?
I don't think so in this capacity that they're just dealing with the building permits, so that they would be the building inspector. But I'm not sure, like, because of the permits of the building, including doing work inside the building, that's what they're inspecting. Is that what you're asking, or what do you?
Well, kind of a twofold, building inspector and short-term or enforcement official. I'm just throwing that out there, so.
I think I'm looking under any police officer. Could the city request that a county officer come in and enforce this to also, if a city officer is not available? Is that something that could be possible?
Well, it's possible.
That's why I would leave all of that whole section, I'd leave it up to the
Enforcement.
Yeah.
lawyers and law enforcement, between the police department and the
City attorney.
the city attorney, they should be able to make
But-
sure all of that stuff is appropriate.
Yeah, let them designate people.
That sounds good. The note I have is to look into the building inspector's capacity, as well as review from police and the city municipal attorney.
Yeah, because there's times the city police is all tied up and you got something going on, they gotta call the county or state in to help.
Right, right.
And
Or
even the tribe.
Indian police too. I mean,
it comes down to what they're gonna decide with the law enforcement and the attorneys on this, how they wanna do that, handle that part.
Yeah.
All right, so the last four sections, 8, 9, 10, and 11, I think would need to be reviewed by the police and city attorney as well, in the sense that they're the enforcement procedure, circuit court civil action, the validity and the effective date. I guess at this point, if anyone has any other additions to those sections that they want to add before talking to the police or city attorney, I guess we could talk about that now.
Yeah. Or like you say, if we think of something tomorrow, we can call you?
Yeah.
You can bring it to the February 20th meeting.
Oh, February 20th meeting?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
I'll have an updated draft, and I'll contact the police and city attorney before then, just as,
Yeah.
And see what their opinions are.
yeah,
Fire department for the fire codes?
yep.
Yeah.
All the different entities that we talked about reaching out to, I'll reach out before the 20th and get their comments on a memo about the
This one's interesting.
draft.
For the violation.
Any other comments about the document or anything that they'd like to state now?
I think you did a good job.
Yeah, no,
Yeah, it's really, very good first draft, so.
for not having anything, yeah, you came up with something pretty good there, Kyle.
All right, I'll reach out to the different folks about the specific things we talked about. They'll be documented in the minutes, and they'll be brought to your attention by the February 20th meeting. We can go from there, okay?
Sure, sounds like a plan. All right.
Do you want me to jump right into the sign ordinance then, Mark?
Please.
Okay, so the current sign ordinance for the city of Manistee has been determined to be difficult to understand and interpret. Departmental research into the topic of interest came up with a sample ordinance from a similar up north Lower Michigan community. The community was contacted and was approved departmental usage for the document as a draft regarding subsequent wording and graphics to be changed at the discretion of the city. The adequacy of this document is something the department feels that the city would benefit from. A sample ordinance was in your packet, as well as the current sign ordinance. So I guess the current sign ordinance is a 5-page document going over purpose, procedures, general standards, exempt signs, prohibited signs, and then the sign regulation table. So the difference between the ordinance currently for the signs, as well as the presented sample sign ordinance, is a definition section is a clear-cut first thing to note. I think it's recommended that the sign ordinance for the city have a definition section, not only to amend Article 21, but also the definitions in the subsequent article in the ordinance. So In the sample sign ordinance, it goes over different definitions that equate to almost 10 pages after all. So does the commission think that a definition section to the sign ordinance should be considered highly, or what's the recommendation about that?
We need to have definitions of some type.
Well,
Actually, the
Marco?
sample ordinance I thought was very good.
I thought, no, go ahead.
I didn't get through reading all of it yet. I was still digging through it, trying to get through all the stuff on it.
But I thought the reason we went down to the 3 or 4 pages when we did was to eliminate so many pages if someone wanted to read the sign ordinance. I mean, if I recall, when our original sign ordinance, it was probably 30, 40 pages, and we were advised by, Marco, who was that group? William and Works?
William and Works, yeah.
They advised us they wanted to make it as simple as possible, so, to cut it down so a person could, read the 3 or 4. That was the reason we eliminated a lot of it.
I agree with.
But when I read this, there's really not much more wordage. It's just that there is examples and it's defined a little bit easier. So when you read it, I understand visually, I get an idea of what the hell the verbiage says.
Oh, I'd say,
So
yeah.
that's why I think that this is, it makes it a little bit
Well,
longer.
1,000 words, I
If you
think,
look
yeah.
at it, a lot of it is really just giving you a pictorial saying, this is permitted, this isn't, this
Yeah.
is permitted, this isn't, so you can kind of get a clear understanding of,
Well, there's nothing wrong with that. I just made
So
it,
some of these definitions could actually, so a lot of these pictures are identical. We could say, okay, definition C, figure 7, this other definition C, figure 7, has all that same stuff on that figure, so we wouldn't need all these pictures.
Sure, I understand where everyone's coming from in their comments regarding having it small and synthesized. I agree with that initially, though. Some of the current wording and definitions don't equate to an easily enforceable ordinance or easily definable for constituents. So that's the main reason of this, to make it more clear. And I understand that having it smaller would be considerably easier to think about, but it's in our opinion that the more images and definitions, the easier to describe.
well, it
So
explains itself probably, like you say, with the picture.
But there is a few, like I've seen, there's a few definitions that can refer to a common figure in a few places. Like, you could combine some stuff like, okay, you got the wall sign, but then you can also show the building height restrictions on the same picture. It's in the same, you're just, the wordage is fine, it's just almost too many illustrations to look at.
Oh, that's a person.
Maybe you can cover 5 or 6 definitions in one picture.
okay.
That's what I'm looking at there. Because then you're starting to search through all these pictures, which one do I need, which one do I need?
Yeah, I guess it's a personal preference. Some like,
I understand. Okay, so too many graphics, keep one graphic to relate to multiple definitions.
well, that would be more sensible, but, whatever you suggest. And where did you get this from that you upgraded it to 35 pages? Just,
Oh, this is from a city north of Charlevoix, Petoskey,
oh,
another RRC community.
yeah.
So the reason I pulled it was because they're nearly the same type of city in the sense of, waterfront, smaller town,
Same type of buildings area up there.
Yeah.
quaint historic area, which is very appealing. So, did you have a comment?
what I really liked in this
That-
is how they addressed the non-conforming signs. I
Right.
thought they took their time to make sure that we're not throwing the baby out with the bathwater, that businesses that have had certain signs forever aren't going to be demanded to, they seem to be, fairly reasonable standards to get to where we want to be. That's page 29.
I don't see one in the examples.
What's that?
Is a painted sign on a building.
Oh, no?
Mr. Amar can elaborate a little on that, if you see any of that going on anymore?
Quite a if I'm waiting till the public comment.
Okay, all right, all right.
Talk about the penny later.
Yeah, okay, well, I mean,
I mean, there was one on the, one that comes to mind on the barber shop downtown, on the west side.
All right, so I'm going to read the nonconformities section that Mick brought up, so we're all on the same page. A nonconformity is a sign that was allowed previous to the current or future ordinance that may not comply with the current or future ordinance. Does that make sense? So a sign that was permitted earlier than the current ordinance that doesn't comply with the ordinance. So the nonconformities section of this ordinance state that expansion, enlargement, and alterations, let me read it. Non-conforming signs shall not be structurally altered so as to prolong the life of the sign, such as to change the shape, size, type, design, or face of the sign. Non-conformities shall not be enlarged, expanded, or extended.
right.
The reestablishment of non-conforming signs shall be reestablished or displayed after the activity, business, or usage to which it relates to has been discontinued for 90 days. So after 3 months of occurrence of a sign that was allowable for the current business, they would have to come into conformity with the ordinance. Reconstruction, should any non-conforming sign or any portion thereof be destroyed by any means to the extent of 60% or more, it shall be reconstructed only in conformity with the provisions of the ordinance. Relocating the sign, should any sign be moved for any reason, for any distance, whatever, it shall thereafter conform to the regulations for the district in which it's located. Maintenance, non-conforming signs may be maintained in their present shape, size, and materials with ordinary repairs so as to remain in a safe condition and to avoid unsightly deterioration. Removal, all signs within the prohibited category shall be removed within 30 days of the effective date of this ordinance.
Yeah,
That goes over the 6 non-conforming restrictions. There are a couple others that,
frustration up there, yeah.
this doesn't exist in the current ordinance to that extent. There is a non-conforming section, but it doesn't go over that much.
Yeah. Yeah, well, no, it looks like you put it
And
together.
the only other thing, I think it may be mentioned somewhere else, is that historical signs will be determined separately and grandfathered.
I wonder if there should be a part in there about being able to restore the historical signs to its original.
Well, I thought that I saw something.
I was trying to figure that out, but I've not been able to personally find it, but,
Yeah,
you know,
Well, I think
restoring a historical sign to its original thing, I don't see a problem with something like that. Because
yeah, but once it's nominated or donated or said historical, don't we have a certain responsibility to keep it up?
Right, well, that's what I'm saying, that part wasn't, not in this section, so.
Yeah,
So, my example would be the Vogue Theater.
Right.
You know, it was closed for over a year, but we put the original Vogue sign back up, and appropriately so, because again,
Uh-huh.
it's historical significance.
and so that went, that went through a restoration process to
Correct.
make it back.
right.
That's what I'm saying, so a clause like that,
Maintaining the upkeep of the historical thing.
and have it, you know, going through the appropriate historical provisions to be accepted as that type of a sign.
All right.
Okay.
Does anyone have any other comments about any of this right now?
In the sign permit application, Kyle, the type of sign, ground mount or monument? Didn't we talk about monument signs in the special use district?
What's the question, I guess?
Well, should we have a box to check in there for monument signs, or would you consider a monument a ground mount?
So you think there should be more clarification on the type of sign on the application, is what you're saying?
Yes. What's the thought of everyone?
When I'm looking at this application, it's kind of covering signs in all districts, which would have some different regulations for how signs are supposed to be in that district.
Isn't this the existing? application?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is the one we have right now.
Right.
So the sign permit type on the application, the type of sign, I'll look into that a little bit further and potentially come with a draft of a new application.
Okay, thank you.
I know it can be pretty convoluted and a lot of information, but for a zoning administrator to administer the sign ordinance of what we have now, something like this, although it's a lot of pages, would be easier. To have specifics of our city added to this ordinance could make it more complete with the different sizes and such that we're considering. But it has been difficult to enact or hold up the current ordinance, so.
Oh, okay. Yeah, there you go.
It wasn't there. I thought I had read it. I
Which one?
highlight about the historic.
Oh, yeah, I read the historical part.
Yeah,
So Roger, to your point, you're recommending that some of these be not as much words and make it a little bit more specific with some. Okay.
and as long as, like Bob mentioned too, I mean, use one graphic for several illustrations, you know, rather than have a picture for every word. Just to, you know. But no, 36 pages, that isn't that bad compared to what I've seen.
Well, and like I said, I think in some cases with some refinement, this is easier, I think, for somebody to know what they could or couldn't do prior to this, where you'd need a legal interpretation, so.
Yeah, I mean, for your reference point, the definitions section is over a third of the document. So to get to the nuts and bolts of it, you know, is 20 pages. I know that sounds like a lot, but as you can search through different documents easier, and it'd just be easier to talk to different. So I'll go back with those comments. Are there any other comments about this from the Planning Commission that I can consider before bringing draft version number 2?
Well, don't we have something else on temporary signs and banners?
In the current ordinance? Yeah, we can look at that.
The current order,
I think there is.
I think we have it may be separate, but that we.
Yeah, it might be a separate ordinance.
Yeah, I don't know if we want to keep it separate or if we just make a reference to.
Are you talking about under section 2103 on your screen right now, the exempt signs with flags and temporary signs? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay, so it says the following shall be exempt: flags up to 24 feet, up to 24 square feet in area. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, but we may have something already, and I don't know if that is in compliance with what we already have for signs, for temporary signs, for like yard signs, for voting, where they can be placed and things like that. This just references sizes, but I think there's some other ordinance about when they can be placed and,
You mean codified ordinances?
yeah.
Okay.
okay.
So you're suggesting to look into the codified ordinances and make them synthesized into this?
Or just have it reference
That ordinance.
that ordinance.
Okay.
Yeah, just like where it says in this old one, says for billboards, refer to section 1814.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, I have all the comments and I'll review the audio just to go over it again. And I'll make the necessary changes and come back with a version 2 based on all the different comments and public comments from tonight.
Okay,
There you go.
okay. We all good?
Yeah, well, good.
No, we'll move along.
Okay.
Old business is finished. Public comments and communication. This time, if there's anyone that would like to address or make a public comment, please come to the podium, name and address, and you'll have up to 5 minutes.
Very patient.
Good evening. My name's Tom Amore, resident of Manistee, and our family's had a sign business in Manistee for 74 years this year. I've been back with my dad since 1987. Grew up in the sign business, worked with sign ordinances a real long time. I'm on the sales end of our business. I sit on a 6 states sign association board, Midwest Sign Association, and a lot of the things we do as small sign companies is pool our resources to work towards better sign codes. Growing up, Roger and I worked on the previous ordinance, and in my lifetime, it's always a fight between the government and then the sign guys, and they always went like this, forever and ever. But recently, in recent years, they've come together. And our sign association and the American Planning Association have teamed up with a group called the Signage Research Foundation. And they've crafted together a model ordinance using the University of Cincinnati as a facilitator. And I brought a copy of that. I've talked with Kyle about this, and I guess I'm a month late. I didn't realize that this was introduced in January, so you're already working on an ordinance that there are good points to it, but there are some things I disagree with it, and I would think we don't need to be in a real hurry about this. It would be worth reading through this model ordinance. I brought a copy. Rules say I hand it to you, Mark.
Yes.
But one of the things I like when you start at the beginning of the Petoskey ordinance, it talks about the intent of the ordinance and the purpose of the ordinance. What's missing in that sample ordinance is the good part about signs, what they mean for the success of a business. We agree on aesthetics, we agree on traffic safety, but a lot of times we get trapped into emotion about the safety and the rules. Oh, we like signs. Oh, you want signs that are too big. What the Signage Research Foundation has done with the University of Cincinnati, they use fact-based research. So there's studies on traffic safety. How big does the letter need to be read based on the speed of the traffic? And this is really a wonderful thing, and it's geared where we can put our personality of Manistee in it. And I would just like to encourage, maybe take a look at this, and if we didn't have to be in a hurry. I like the way you guys interact. I listened to the short-term rental thing, and you guys are doing a fine job. But the public can't really participate in it. So I don't know what the way to do it is. If it's a work session where we're sitting at the table and we can talk at the same time and work from the same document. That's all I would like to add.
Okay.
Yeah, Kyle take a look at that, no?
You, honestly, Tom, you can take it to Kyle. Yeah, sure. And we can get copies made for everyone.
I can send you a PDF, but there's also a web page.
Yeah, great. There's no hurry, really.
Yeah, we're still, right?
Yeah, of course. And regarding,
Why not use the resources? Knowing using your resources is key to Boy Scout success.
Right. We can do that. We have the power.
Oh, we got more.
Okay.
Good evening, David Homer, High Street, Manistee, 909 High Street. I didn't want to speak tonight. Upsetting about seeing, I have not read the sign ordinance update or whatever, where it is, so I don't know the contents of it. And a lot of things are probably exempt for freedom of speech or dealing with government and stuff. But what really upset me is one of the graphics has the word vote on it. I would ask that you review your graphics and take out anything that might be construed as political and so that it doesn't look like this is an infringement on our right. I mean, I'm a veteran. I fought for this. When I see something that infringes on something that is guaranteed by our Supreme Court, it upsets me. And also go through those to make sure that you look at our citizens that we can have them, and a lot of things may be temporary, but I appreciate that if you could review those things. And thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Mr. Mayor? No?
We just woke him up. He's awake. How you done it?
What's the matter?
Anything we want to hear?
Well,
You haven't addressed us in a while, so.
first of all, thank you for the hard work that you do. And as it was, Tom had mentioned, the dialogue tonight was very, very interesting. I didn't find myself looking at the clock and wanting to go home and have a Coke. It's very good. I think that the rental, the things we do with our rentals, the vacation rentals, is very important. They're doing it in other areas, and it deserves the time that you're spending to make sure it's done right. We don't need to create, we don't want a town where we have a lot of people who are gathering in one place and having a party like some other areas have had, causing damage. So keep up the good work. I love your positive attitude. I think we're going in a great direction. We have a lot of positivity in the community right now. Let's keep it up and let's keep working together. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Very good.
Good mind.
Correspondence? Been any correspondence received? Nothing?
No correspondence.
Staff reports?
No staff.
The Manistee Lake Trail has non-motorized paths and different sidewalk extensions on a work map currently. By the March meeting, I would suppose that there would be a graphic to showcase. Those trail routes were taken from different community stakeholder input and are defined on a map, on a work map. So I'd like to bring that to your attention as soon as possible, and I just wanted to say about that right now.
Thank you. Nancy, you have anything? Nope. Okay. Member discussion, Bob?
Nothing.
Mick?
Nope.
Captain?
Yes, you mentioned February 20th. Are we having a special meeting?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, at 7:30 here?
Oh, it's at
7 o'clock.
7.
7 o'clock here?
Yep.
Okay. And I'd like to show me on that map where you're gonna put them cars that you got sitting on the highway when you make this trail and put the rail yard on the south end of Manistee Lake. Where are you gonna put the cars that?
This is
The stockyard part.
this is a different plan altogether.
Okay.
Yeah, so the non-motorized trail just goes over different needs around the lake, not including relocating the railroad. So there's many different plans going on, I guess. Relocating the railroad is something different right now.
All right, I was talking to Mike about that. Okay, I'm good, thank you.
All right,
Mark.
thank you. Pam?
Oh, I'm good.
The only thing I have is I just want to, I know she's not here tonight, but I want to thank Shelley Thomas for her dedication to the planning commission. I'm sorry.
Quit?
Yeah, she resigned.
Oh, really?
Yeah, she resigned, last week, so.
Do we now then, Nancy, advertise for a person?
Yeah, they're working.
There's
Somebody.
Or do,
applications
Well, the city,
been out
the
there.
clerks in the city know.
Yeah.
They're the
clerk
ones.
does? Oh,
Yeah.
I was just wondering how that worked. Okay.
So that's all I have. I just,
Do you want to mention, you want to mention Tom working with them?
oh. Yes, Mick brought up, about having Mr. Amor, work with us on the sign ordinance. Expert.
Well, if he looks at the dialogue that he gave him, I'm sure.
Yeah, so I mean, if we could roll that in.
Yep. What was stated earlier about scheduling a work session, we agree that's a great idea, and to put that on the calendar will come to fruition soon. I just need to go back and talk with some others about potentials about that, so I'll bring that to your attention as soon as possible.
And something like that, we want to include Mr. Amor on that.
Oh, yes, yep.
The work session will have opportunity for others to comment as well.
Okay.
And to the point of not rushing this, there's no rush, there's no deadline, there's no this or that. It's just it would be easier for the zoning administrator to administer the sign ordinance as soon as we possibly can, but there's no rush. Just want to put that.
All right.
Okay.
It's almost a thing, in case of more input, the better.
With that, I would Take a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Second?
Second.
Good.
Third.
Adjourned.
Motion to adjourn.